Hey there, avid listeners. Thanks again for tuning in to Sin's Workshop. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So today we're going to be talking about What Big Teeth You Have by Rose, actually. Sabato. They are a non-binary author, and this is their debut. So I have mixed feelings about this book. I think as a debut, it certainly is interesting, but what gets me, what kind of, I guess, bothers me is how the story unfolds. Now, this is, I guess you can guess from the title, it is similar to a werewolf story, Red Riding Hood classic line, What Big Teeth You Have, right? And Eleanor, her family are a bunch of werewolves. There is no disputing that. They are werewolves. They shift. And I do like how the author alludes to their shifting whenever. It starts with their teeth, maybe just their claws come out. Sometimes they just act very animalistic. I did like that. I did ultimately like the progression of the story as well, especially once her grandmère enters into the story. I thought from that point forward, the story did get very interesting, and it did have a lot of Addams Family vibes. However, it was crazy, it was kooky, it was mysterious, but the story itself lacked a certain bit of charm that I was expecting when I was reading this story. It is dark, it is sinister, it is mysterious. There are a lot of unanswered questions that do come to resolve themselves by the end of the story, and that's what really keeps the story interesting, because for me, I wasn't reading the story for the characters after a point, and I want to talk about that in a second, but overall, I was just reading the story for the mystery. I wanted to know, why did Eleanor's grandmother decide to send her away at such a young age, especially after that strong opening where she's like, I think I want to eat him. It's just, what happened? What was this, the moment that her grandmother decided she's too dangerous? But why would that make a difference when you consider the fact that everyone in her family is a werewolf, pretty much? So why did her grandmother send her away? And then you're kind of unraveling why Eleanor ran away from her boarding school to go back home to her estranged family that she never heard from. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really care for these characters. I think her grandmother is kind of horrible to Eleanor. She made her feel so isolated from her family. She created this bridge between her and her family so that when she came back home, she didn't fit in at all. And I do feel bad for Eleanor because of that. She didn't hear from her family at all. And why? Because her grandmother is a horrible, horrible person. I'm going to say that. I didn't care for Grandma Persephone at all. In fact, I liked Grandmère more because she showed Eleanor more compassion. She showed her more love. She showed her more acceptance, which was more compelling to me. To just be tossed away by this person who's like, oh, you're dangerous. Like, how is she dangerous, though? How is Eleanor dangerous? And how is she any more dangerous than everyone else in your family? I was confused. Because they're all very dangerous people. And then you have her sister, Luma? I want to say Luma. And then you have her cousin Rice and her Aunt Margaret, who don't really, her Aunt Margaret doesn't really talk at all. Her Aunt Margaret doesn't say anything to her at all. And then you have Rice, who's kind of a bully, and her older sister is also a bully. You have her father, who she realizes just kind of hates her. This is a family of characters that lack the heart and charm that the Addams family do. Like, they're unlikable. They are 100% unlikable. I didn't care for them at all. Does Eleanor put them in danger? Yes, but you understand why she put them in danger, because she found acceptance and love with another grandmother who loves her, and I was just very disappointed by the characterization and those character dynamics. Maybe we're not meant to like these characters. I guess so. I've read books where, you love to hate the characters, but you love to hate them in a compelling way. This was not a compelling way. These characters weren't compelling. For me, they lacked substance. They just lacked heart. They lacked understanding. I get it. They're wolves. They're supposed to be animalistic, but wolves always protect their pack, generally speaking. So I really did find this story hard to get into. Also, I felt like it dragged. I really do think that there's a way. Okay, here's the thing. I was reading the book, and I'm seeing that the author is, showing, not telling. But as I'm reading it, it feels like they're telling instead of showing. And it was just a lot of exposition. Maybe that's why I got that vibe, because there was so much exposition in the storytelling, and it really drowned out the story. Now, I understand the exposition. I understand the author's reasoning for it, because she's trying to showcase, past events and Eleanor, and how Eleanor feels so isolated from her family. So there's a lot going on in these scenes. It's not like it's just exposition for the sake of exposition. It does serve a point. I just think it could have been done in a better, more concise way and still gotten the same point across. That being said, ultimately it was interesting. It was an interesting story. I did ultimately enjoy reading it, but only because of the story and only because of the mystery, not because of the characters. I couldn't stand the characters. I could care less for the characters. I thought they were all pretty loathsome. Didn't like them at all, to be perfectly honest. But it is worth a read because it is a really interesting story. The progression of it is interesting. The development of it is interesting. I just was not sold on that characterization. So I have to give What Big Teeth 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't terrible. Again, I finished the book at least. It just took me longer than I wanted to finish the book. I wish I had read it. I wish I had been able to read it quicker than what was allowed to me. But again, it was interesting overall. So I do think it's at least worth picking up if you can't get past that first chapter, not including the prologue. I do think the prologue is a really good start to the story. I think the beginning, that prologue, is excellent. I think the epilogue is excellent. It's just everything in between that just... I was intrigued but bored at the same time. So I have to give it 3 out of 5 stars. So if you want to go ahead and purchase this book, I do recommend purchasing it from your local bookseller. If you want to go ahead, if you're on the fence, just check out the book from your local library. And on that note, I hope you all continue to support Sin's Workshop Podcast by liking this podcast, sharing it with all your book-loving friends. And you can also become a supporter on Anchor FM, my recording platform, for 99 cents a month. There's information in the description of this podcast. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.